Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a scientific review that shows a huge shift in Alzheimer's research. A real revolution, in fact. The whole game is moving from the clinic to the cloud. And trust me, for drug development, the implications are just massive. All right, let's kick things off with a number that should make any executive sit up and pay attention. $3.5 million. That's how much we're talking in savings on a single clinical trial. And all it takes is changing how we find the right people. So here's what we're going to cover. We'll look at this new screening revolution, talk about the massive bottleneck it's designed to fix, see how cognitive testing is literally moving into people's homes, check out the proof that this all actually works, and then wrap up with what this means for your next big strategic decision. Okay, so let's jump right in. Let's get to the headline, the main takeaway from this entire scientific paper. The big news is this: remote, unsupervised cognitive testing for preclinical Alzheimer's. It's not some futuristic idea anymore. It's a validated, here-and-now reality. The tools that let people take these really sensitive cognitive tests on their own smartphones or tablets right from their living room, well, they're proven. The data is solid, and they are ready to go, right now. But why is this such a big deal? I mean, why is it a breakthrough? Well, to really get the impact, you first have to understand the massive billion-dollar bottleneck this whole thing was built to smash. Okay, so here's the problem. It's all about finding people in what's called the preclinical stage of Alzheimer's. What that means is their brains already have the telltale signs of the disease, but on the outside, they seem perfectly fine. No symptoms at all. Finding these specific individuals for clinical trials, it's been like trying to find a needle in a haystack, a really, really expensive haystack. And this slide just lays out the massive shift perfectly. Look at the old way. On the left, you had to physically bring thousands of people into a clinic for super expensive scans. The cost was huge, it was a major hassle for patients, and you only got a snapshot of data every now and then. Now, look at the new way. You can reach millions of people right where they are, in their homes. The cost plummets, the burden on patients is tiny, and you get this incredible, constant stream of data. So you're probably wondering, how does this actually work? Let's take a look at the new digital toolbox that's making all this at-home testing a reality. I mean, these digital tools are just a giant leap forward in so many ways. First, precision. They can measure things like reaction time down to the millisecond, something that's totally impossible with old pen and paper tests. Then there's frequency. You can test someone daily or even multiple times a day, which lets you see these tiny, subtle changes that you'd otherwise miss completely. And finally, because people are doing these tests in their normal, everyday environment, the data is just more real. It has what scientists call ecological validity, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a much truer picture of how someone's brain is working in the real world. And just to be clear, we're not talking about just one little app here. The review actually looked at 23 different validated tools. It's like a whole digital ecosystem. You've got everything from simple digitized versions of old school tests all the way to really cutting-edge stuff using AI to analyze speech patterns and even augmented reality. It's pretty incredible. Okay, so this all sounds amazing, but I know what you're thinking, especially if you're in a leadership position. The critical question is always, where's the proof? Does this stuff actually work? Well, the paper is pretty blunt about it. The authors found that, yeah, these remote assessments have good feasibility and validity. But don't just take their word for it. The data that backs this up is really, really compelling. So let's dig into the numbers. First up, feasibility. You know, the most basic question. Will people even agree to do this? And the answer is a huge yes. We're seeing consent rates for these remote studies hit as high as 86%. People are on board. Okay, so they'll sign up, but will they actually stick with it? Again, absolutely. Get this, in studies that required daily testing for a whole week, people completed up to 93% of all the tests. That's fantastic adherence. All right, so people will do it and they'll stick with it. But is the data you get any good? Is it usable? The answer is crystal clear. Up to 98% of the data collected was high quality, passed all the checks, and was ready for analysis. So the signal you're getting isn't just there, it's clean. And that brings us to the most important part, validity. This is the scientific proof. Can these tests actually detect the earliest signs of the disease? And this chart right here says, yes, they can. What you're seeing is that across the board, people who seem healthy but have the underlying Alzheimer's pathology, they consistently perform just a little bit worse on these digital tests. It's amazing. The tools are actually picking up on a real biological signal. In fact, some of these tools are so sensitive that they can tell the difference between people with and without the pathology with an area under the curve, or AUC, of up to 0.83. Now, for those of you not in statistics, an AUC of 0.83 is really good. It means the test is very effective at telling the two groups apart. So these aren't just measuring subtle changes anymore. They're becoming powerful tools for classification. Okay, so the science is solid. It works. The big question now is, what do you do with this information? Let's pivot and talk strategy. Let's talk about how this new digital toolkit gives you a serious competitive edge. The research really highlights three main strategic plays here, three game-changing applications. You can find the right people at massive scale, you can monitor them with incredible precision, and eventually, you can even predict their individual outcomes. So use case number one goes right for the jugular. It directly attacks that billion-dollar bottleneck we were talking about earlier. Think about it. Instead of spending a fortune on in-person screening, you can now pre-screen hundreds of thousands, even millions of people remotely to find that small group that's most likely to be eligible for your trial. What does that mean for you? It means faster enrollment, way lower costs, and potentially shaving years off your development timeline. But it's not just about recruitment. These tools unlock a ton of other value. That high-frequency data we mentioned, it gives you an incredibly rich data set to track if a drug is actually working, with a sensitivity you've never had before. And looking even further down the road, this data is the foundation for creating individualized prognoses, predicting a specific person's risk of decline. That is the holy grail of personalized medicine. All right, let's wrap this up and bring it all home. Based on everything we've seen, what's your next move? What should you be talking about in your strategy meeting tomorrow morning? Well, the implications are pretty clear-cut. If you're in R&D, you need to be thinking about integrating these digital cognitive markers as actual endpoints in your trials. If you're in clinical operations, it's time to start piloting these remote screening tools to slash those recruitment costs and timelines. And from a competitive standpoint, the companies that move first on this, the ones who leverage these tools for efficiency and better patient engagement, they are going to have a massive advantage. Look, this digital revolution isn't something that's going to happen, it's happening right now. And in this new environment, failing to adapt, well, it's just not an option anymore. So it really all comes down to the one question on your screen. Is your clinical trial strategy built for the past, or is it built for the future?